was the perfect chance to talk about a feature that was there since day one, but it was meant for some advanced use cases, so I decided to wait for someone to really need it. I'm talking about the total supply providers. These are PHP classes that Symfony recognizes as services and that can be used by the app in order to get the current total supply value. You can think about them as if they were plugins for the safe NFT metadata provider. You swap the total supply provider with another one, and your app is gonna get the value from a different source. This can be really powerful. Our repo already contains some examples that can be used as they are, or you can use them as a starting point for some custom implementation. But first of all, let's fork our repo so we can make some changes to the code. Once the fork is ready, we can use an amazing feature from GitHub. So we can do everything directly from inside our web browser. From the repo page, let's press the dot key on your keyboard. This is gonna open a custom version of Visual Studio Code that allows you to perform advanced changes on your code and create commits straight from your browser window. How cool is that? Now we have to change the two files because at the moment the DigitalOcean configuration is pointing to the original repo and we want it to point to our fork instead. So I am gonna open the README file. I go down to the bottom, and here you have the Deploy to DigitalOcean button. We can simply replace the URL here and point it to our fork. The other file is the deploy template inside the .do folder. Here you can scroll to the bottom and change the repo URL. In this case, I'm simply replacing the Ashlip's Lab organization name with my GitHub username. And now we can commit our changes from here. And if we open the repo page, we see that our commit is there. Great! Now it comes the fun part. The total supply providers are inside the SRC folder. Total supply provider, and here you see some example providers. Please skip the cached total supply provider since it's simply a wrapper class that provides a caching layer for any custom provider that you decide to use. On the other hand, the other three are actually different implementations. Let's take a look at them one by one. The envar provider is the simplest one. It just uses an environment variable to provide the current total supply. This means that the value is static and can be changed manually. This is really useful when you're testing your code on a local machine. In order to use any provider, I have to tell my app that I want to use this provider instead of the Web3 provider, which is the default one. These can be done from the config folder, inside the services YAML file. This file comes from Symfony and contains the main configuration of our app. Inside this configuration file, you see a begin and end comments marking a specific section. Here, you can specify which service to use as a file system driver, the one that deals with the storage, and as a total supply provider. Now I change the total supply provider to env_var. Then I scroll down a bit and find the service definition for the env_var provider. And here it is. You can see that it uses an environment variable called env_total_supply. So we can use this variable in order to specify a custom value manually. I'm just gonna copy this. The last thing that we have to change is the deploy template for DigitalOcean. Here you see that we have the Web3 HTTP endpoint as a variable. But now we are using another provider, so we can change this and it's gonna pick the new variable when deploying the app. I rename the variable. I change its type since this is not secret anymore. And finally, I set the default value to 8 for a quick test. Now we can review our changes. We commit them. And now we can deploy the app. The process is exactly the same as with the original project. The only things that are gonna change are the target repo, that is gonna be our fork, and the last environment variable. Well, this is a quick video from the future because I keep forgetting this thing. Actually, DigitalOcean is expecting all the environment variables values to be strings. So please always surround your values with quotes whenever you are dealing with integers, booleans, or any kind of value that is not a string. And with that said, we can carry on. I'm gonna speed up this, but you can check out the other video showing the full process in detail. Once the app is ready, we can open the console and type bin/console NFT total supply. And the result is 8. Perfect! I can go to my component settings, to the environment variables. I can change this, save the settings, and wait for DigitalOcean to update the app. And now, let's run the command again. It says 12. Cool! Now let's take a look at the other example provider, the OpenSea stats provider. This example is cool because it shows how you can query an HTTP API in order to get the total supply value. This class is using a service called HTTP Client Interface from the Symfony framework, and the total supply function simply makes an HTTP request to the OpenSea API, appending the collections log taken from the configuration. The response is then parsed as an array, and the total supply value is taken from the path collection stats total_supply. All of this is simply packed in less than 50 lines of code. Let's quickly deploy these as well. From the services.yaml, we see that it's using a variable called OpenSea collections log. So we change the service ID up here, and then we also update the environment variable on the deploy template. I'm not gonna use this since my app is already deployed, but I show it anyway so you know the complete process. I can now commit my changes. And now we can update the configuration on DigitalOcean. I'm gonna change the variable name, and then let's insert a collections log as an example, Bored Ape Kennel Club. I save the settings, and instead of waiting for the app to go live, this time, since we also changed the source code, we are gonna force a rebuild and deploy, because otherwise DigitalOcean is gonna use the same commit as the previous build. We clear the build cache, and we hit deploy. Let's wait for the app to go live again. And here it is! The new app should now be using the OpenSea stats provider. Let's verify it. We open the console, we run the total supply command, and it says 9,602, which is correct. If we check the API manually, this is exactly the value that we were expecting. So to wrap up, I showed you how to create a fork of the SafeNFT metadata provider, change it on the fly, and deploy it without even leaving your browser. We also had a look to the total supply providers included into the project, and I'm pretty sure that many of you will be able to come up with some interesting custom implementations.